Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I'm Chris Clements.
And we've got a great episode today.
This
Audio
is
only,
amazing.
but this will be incredible.
Yes, we're really thankful to have Marc Thiessen from the Washington Post and the American Enterprise Institute here in the great state of Arizona, gracing our presence. Marc has had a tremendous career in politics, being a speechwriter and working for the Bush administration, and now Fox News. I mean, you can just go down the line, and we're just so happy to have you here.
Well,
and you and I met about 10 years ago.
That's right.
During a YPO forum retreat that I had conducted in Washington, D.C., and we met at the old AEI building.
That's right.
At downtown, and it was our last resource that we had for the retreat, and along Mark and Misha Oslin, who is always very interesting. He's over at Hoover now, but it got the highest marks of the entire trip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Great. That's
I
a little
remember.
pressure on me now.
That's right.
I got to bring you ratings.
Well, I mean, we ended well because if memory serves, we had Niall Gardner from Heritage. We were over at Heritage, and Steve Moore.
Wow.
So we finished strong.
That's awesome. That's great. Well,
Yeah.
great to be back with you.
No, thank you for being here. It's great to have you in Phoenix.
I'm happy to be here. It's much better weather than Washington, D.C.
Yeah, this is the time to be here for sure. What, Mark? Your career has been amazing to watch, and you've been an intellectual juggernaut. AEI has been obviously a huge part of what the conservative movement means. Tell us a little bit about, how did you get there? What are the things that you're passionate about as you're looking at the world today?
Freedom. Personal freedom here at home and freedom around the world. I mean, and by the way, thank you for the kind words about AEI. It's the greatest think tank in Washington, greatest think tank probably in the world. And what's so great about it is that everybody there is conservative, but there's all sorts of different brands of conservatism and disagreements within conservatism. And so we have this great debate within the conservative movement at AEI about different issues. And we have academic freedom. So our research isn't directed by any corporate money. It's not directed, we don't have directed projects. They literally just give us a desk and a job and say, go fight for the ideals you believe in. And we just go run and fight for them. So it's great.
That amount of freedom must be just absolutely gratifying.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because I've been adjacent to the think tank world for many, many years, having been a Hill staffer and then the Prince of Dark Money and all that kind of thing. But I've always appreciated AEI, especially, it's got such a storied, it's just a storied institution. And Arthur Brooks was there.
Yes.
It was just amazing. He's just an amazing person. Paul Ryan was there for a short time. I mean, it just, to me, it's been a thought leader without question for decades, which is pretty interesting. And I really appreciate you point out that there's different strands of conservatism because that is something that, a lot of people who are now paying attention to politics because of Trump think that conservatism is Trump. They don't understand that there's lots of different brands and flavors. And I tend to be probably most aligned with the William F. Buckley viewpoint of conservatism. Although that's probably changed a little bit. The world has changed.
But Buckley is the greatest evidence. Buckley was a mentor of mine. I got to know him when I was at college. I was editing a conservative newspaper at Vassar College, and they tried to shut us down, and he came to our rescue and helped us secure some funding to publish it independently.
He did that for a lot of people.
And became a good friend. But, Buckley famously said that I'd rather be governed by the first 5,000 names in the Boston telephone directory than the faculty of Harvard College. That's about as populist as a statement as you can. We as conservatives believe in the collective wisdom of millions of Americans making decisions about their lives. The left believes in the collective wisdom of the Harvard faculty to impose decisions on the rest of us and tell us how to live our lives. And within that broad framework, there's lots of debate about what our policy should be, how we should function as a movement. But that's the fundamental idea. And so, in this election, the collective wisdom of the American people was that Joe Biden was a disaster and that Donald Trump had been actually a much better president than many gave him credit for in the first year when they had a chance to compare it. And so they said, why don't we put him back in office and give him a chance? And now he's, people are starting to, starting to see Trump derangement, trickle back in
Yes.
to the discussion. But the reality is he was quite successful, and people, I think we need to learn at this point, after having had 4 years of him in office and 4 years of them trying to destroy him while they mismanaged the country. We can see that we can't look at Donald Trump's presidency through the conventional lens, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to look at an unconventional president through a conventional lens.
Yeah,
and it doesn't work. And so you have to try and understand who he is, what he's trying to do, how he negotiates, how he does things, how he disrupts, and to figure out what he's up to and whether it's moving us in the right direction. And so far, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. Look, Chris and I we have not been, as Chris has described it, we are neither never Trump or forever Trump. We're just kind of there in the middle.
What I've said is that we're not forever Trumpers. We're not never Trumpers. We're whatever Trumpers.
Whatever Trump is.
And that is, I think it's about as middle of the road as you can get.
Yeah,
because you have to recognize that Trump has the populist, mantra, but at the same time he's brought in all these different parts of the movement, and now you've got RFK and Tulsi Gabbard and people have come, who have seen the weaponization of government over the last several years, or like we talked in our podcast the other day, really the last, 12, 16 years, going back to the Obama years, and want it to stop. Yeah. And they feel that the team he's putting in place is going to do exactly that. And then you want to get your impression about Doge. And we've had multiple podcasts. I went back and listened to a lot of our podcasts about just what is happening with this and how it's actually a conservative fever dream. Yeah. Because
it is, yeah.
Because all these things that we knew were happening, we knew that we're in the bowels of the government are being revealed, and people are outraged.
So here's the thing that people don't understand about Doge. The founder of Doge was Barack Obama.
Yes. That's right.
I did a column on this the other day.
Yes.
He founded the U.S. Digital Service, which Trump has turned into the U.S. Doge Service, same acronym, USDS. And it was founded after the failure of the Obamacare rollout with the collapse of the website.
Right.
And so he said, let's bring in all these smart tech kids. Now we've got big balls, as they call them. But in the Obama administration, they called them Presidential Innovation Fellows. And they were 20-year-old tech bros or gals who were coming into the government temporarily to help the agencies figure out how to be more efficient, right? They were trying to be more efficient in spending money. Right. But Trump and Doge are trying to be more efficient in finding out where we're wasting money. And the reality is, if you look at it, if you looked at the GAO report for the 2023 fiscal year, GAO came out last year with a report looking back at the 2023 fiscal year, $236 billion in improper payments. $175 billion of that was payments to dead people or people who no longer qualified, and then $45 trillion of it was just money they lost and have no idea where it went. $236 billion is triple the amount of money we spend on Homeland Security.
Wow.
It's triple the education department budget. It's the equivalent of half of all the corporate taxes we took in that year. So the Democrats are running around saying we need to raise corporate taxes. Why don't you stop losing half the corporate taxes you take in, and then maybe we could have a conversation. So what Doge is doing is now, and that's without the forensic, the forensic tools that Doge is putting in the AI algorithms.
Yes,
they're going to find all this. That. And I bet you it's more. In some years, according to the GAO, it was up to almost $550 billion in a single year, and they added up $2.4 trillion over 20 years in wasted improper payments, waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm sorry, but Trump got elected saying, I want to give a tax cut to cut tax on tips. Treat people who work for tips their money respectfully, give it back to them. Well, you're not respecting the money of a tipped worker, of a waitress or somebody working in a casino somewhere or whatever they're doing. You're not treating their money with respect when you say, "Oh, we just lost $236 billion of your money." But no, but this is an outrage that they're trying to find out how it's done, how we did it.
Yeah,
every American wants to know how we found that out.
Right. No,
Yeah, and the beauty about it is we have the technology that Elon is employing. We've talked about this several times to see it, to grab hold of it, and to eliminate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Which again, it's a conservative fever dream.
The
I mean, it really
guy
is.
who can land a rocket can probably get to the bottom of the waste.
that's what I've said.
Which is why the freak out is happening, right?
Well, it is. It's happening because it's been, and I've said this before. It's the money is part of it, but it is exposing them for what they've been doing for decades, and what they've been doing is just completely unconstitutional. It's outrageous, and it's immoral.
Yeah.
Because it is literally theft of American tax dollars to, for their own pet projects.
So the professional left is essentially a web of NGOs, right? And we thought that Soros was funding them. And it turns out it wasn't Soros at all. It was USAID, right?
Which might say it's the taxpayer.
Truly, that's what they're upset about. So, I mean, there's levels of it, right? There's the just absolute incompetence of the federal government in just losing money,
right?
Or giving it to people who are dead or no longer qualify. Though a lot of those, I think it's interesting. A lot of those could be people who are illegal immigrants who are using old, 175-year-old, Social Security numbers and all the rest. So I bet you there's some corruption there as well. But a lot of it is they've been funneling this money off to their NGOs, and they've been living off of the government teat, and now they're going to lose their flow of funding, and the whole organized left is going to collapse when their NGOs can't get government funding. You saw at EPA where I'm sorry,
Lee Zeldin.
Zeldin came in, and they publicly said that as the Titanic goes down, we're throwing gold bricks over the side, and they gave billions and billions of dollars. Stacey Abrams started a group which had I think $100 in revenues the first year, that. And also they gave $2 billion.
$2 billion for green, some kind of green thing. Yeah.
And we're going to expose it. We're going to cut them off. And they are going. If you just think of the losses the left has experienced over the last 4 years, they threw everything they had at Donald Trump to try and stop him. And not only did they fail to stop him with 91 indictments, 2 impeachments, 2 assassination attempts, civil suits, everything, you name everything, he survived it. And not only did he survive it, he's now going after their money and the root of the organized crime that the left is engaged in.
Well, it's like our friend David Schweikert always says when he comes on our show: follow the money. Yeah. Do you want to know who's behind it all? Follow the money.
Amen.
And all of the stuff that Trump has gone through for the last 8 years has only emboldened him, which makes him even more effective
and dangerous.
Dangerous to the left, effective for the rest of the country, because there are no more F's to give, right? I mean, he's done. Yeah. He's done. So he doesn't care. He's just going to get the job done. And I think
and we're just running out of popcorn.
Yeah, I mean, that's what excites those of us who care about a bloated federal government that needs to get back to its roots. And, I can only imagine people John McCain, Tom Coburn, people who cared about fiscal stuff when they were in the Senate. I mean, Tom Coburn in particular has just got to do cartwheels in heaven, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
That report he put out every year was so awesome.
Well, and then, Festivus for the rest of us, that Rand Paul puts out, that God bless him for continuing that every year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rand's going to have a great year, I think. There's going to be a lot happening for him.
He'll be busy.
Yeah.
Mark, let's shift a little bit to Ukraine, Russia, what's going on. Because Chris and I have had diverging opinions about, I am very much an anti-Russian type of person because I think that Putin is still so.
And you along with the 70% of the American people or something like that, or 90% of the American people.
Trump, I think I watched the cabinet meeting today, and the stuff he was saying was a little less caustic in my mind than what he'd said, what I thought he was saying before. But what, this minerals deal with Ukraine obviously sounds like a very good deal.
Yes.
And important because, one of the things that I used to argue with people when they were saying, we're just giving stuff away to Ukraine. It's like, this is like Lend-Lease. This is like what we did with Britain. Now, it took Britain decades to pay us back. We didn't get paid back in full until, I think, 2014. Yeah. But this is a fast track
Yes.
of getting repaid, right?
Yes, 100%. So first of all, this is a great deal. So well, before even that, in sort of the caustic language about Ukraine, I think that was Trump negotiating. I think that Zelensky was dragging his feet on the deal. He said a few things that were critical of Trump publicly, which he probably shouldn't have said.
Right.
And so Trump is a counterpuncher, so he punched back, right? But I know for a fact, because I've had long discussions about Ukraine with Trump, he loves Zelensky. At least maybe loves him a little bit less now since they've had some public sparring. But he credits Zelensky with saving him during the first impeachment because he said there was nothing wrong with the phone call,
Right.
And he said that's when the impeachment died. So he feels a personal debt to Zelensky for that, and he cares about Ukraine. I think what's motivating Trump is he thinks, one, this war would have never happened if I had been president.
Right.
Because,
Yes.
and I think he's 100% right in that.
Totally
in that
agree.
correct. Because it was immediately after Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, which projected weakness. And then if you remember, we were resisting giving the Ukrainians weapons to deter Putin. Trump would have stopped it, I think. It's fair to say. You can't prove it, but I think that's likely. He certainly believes that. So he's seeing, literally hundreds of thousands of people dead or wounded and dying every day in a war that should have never happened. And so he truly wants to stop it because he wants to stop the killing. That's, I think, what's motivating him.
Yeah.
And he supported the Ukraine aid package last time around, if you remember last year. He met with Speaker Johnson right before it was passed and gave him the green light to go ahead and pass it. And he said during the campaign that if Putin doesn't come to the table, I'm going to double the aid to Ukraine, because he knew that he would have to bring him to the table. So that's the context for what's happening. The minerals deal, I would argue, is more important than the peace deal to come.
Yes.
And the reason for it is this: Vladimir Putin wanted to conquer Ukraine. Instead, Donald Trump has gone into business with Ukraine. He just signed.
That's what I said.
He just signed a long-term partnership to develop hundreds of billions of dollars of mineral resources, hydrocarbons, offshore oil, you name it, ports to sell it, like that. We're going into business in Ukraine, and
we're going to rebuild the country through that.
Rebuild the country through it, because they have enormous mineral wealth that's underground and undeveloped.
Yeah.
And only America can develop it. And we got to get it. It has
get
zero
it now.
value until it comes up from under the ground and gets, aluminum, titanium for airplanes, you name it, uranium. He wants to do this AI, all this expansion of AI, which takes enormous, energy to do that. And he wants to build small nuclear reactors. You need uranium for it. You know where we get most of our uranium? We get a lot of it from Russia.
Yes.
And at that. So make us less dependent on Russia, have an independent source of that. But all of that is just an idea until we develop it. So Trump is, instead of sending U.S. troops, which neither the Democrats or the Republicans would have done,
right,
he's sending U.S. miners. He's sending earth movers. He's sending shovels and pickaxes and investment, U.S. direct investment.
He's sending Elon Musk.
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm sure Elon wants the lithium that's over there.
Absolutely.
And this is a long-term investment in Ukraine, because what this means now is we are invested, literally, not figuratively, in a free and independent sovereign Ukraine.
Right.
If Putin succeeds in taking over Ukraine, do you think he's going to pay us back for the weapons we gave Zelensky to kill his troops?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
The only way we get the money is if Ukraine survives. And so now the peace deal, whatever that's going to be, is simply a matter of securing his investment. And from Trump's perspective, that's now what his challenge is, to secure the investment. And that's good for Ukraine. That's good for us. We're going to get paid back for the money. We gave them a lot of money in aid, and Trump suggested last time around that it should be loans, and Congress didn't do it that way.
Right.
Well, guess what? He's turning it into a loan retroactively. Fine, we should get paid back for it, and we should give them more weapons and use the minerals to pay for it.
Well, it is a brilliant strategy from the standpoint of making it so that we have a true investment in the country. It only works if it's free and independent.
Yep.
And it's bordering Russia, which means that we have an interest in making sure Russia stands pat.
Yep.
And Russia, knowing that America is now deeply invested in Ukraine, the country itself. I mean, it's the deterrent factor that's a huge piece of this.
Yeah, and you have to have security guarantees of some kind that are going to good enough to it doesn't matter what diplomats think of the security guarantees. What matters is what Wall Street thinks of the guarantees, what U.S. investors think of the guarantees, because if you want to get U.S. businesses to invest, they have to be pretty confident that we've set up a system that the war's not going to start as soon as Trump leaves office again.
Right.
And all the money they put in gets blown up, because then it's not just we're losing potential money, it's actual money that's being invested in the country. So he's got an incentive to create a stable security environment that will last beyond his presidency. Because keep in mind, Vladimir Putin has invaded his neighbors in the 21st century under every president except Trump. That's right. That's right. I mean, he invaded Georgia in the last year of the Bush administration. He invaded Ukraine for the first time under Obama. Then Trump came in and nothing happened. Then Biden came in and he did a full-scale invasion and almost took Kyiv. And so the danger for Trump is that we get into a situation where Putin's just waiting him out. Right? So they stop the war temporarily. He gets to lick his wounds, regroup, reconstitute, rebuild his defense industrial base, and China and North Korea will help him do that, and then get ready for Trump to leave so he can do it again. And so we have to create a security structure that prevents him from doing that, so that it's a long-term peace agreement.
And then how do you, we talked about this on our podcast the other day, but how do you get to a situation where it looks like, at least on the Putin side, that he's able to save face, and you can peel him away from the Irans of the world and the Chinas of the world? I heard
there's nowhere to peel him away from the Irans and Chinas of the world.
You don't think so?
No.
I heard that from Secretary Rubio the other day, that ultimately is a broader goal.
I think that's unlikely.
Okay.
But I think it's good that they put it out there. So here's what Trump is doing right now. He is trying to entice Putin to the negotiating table to negotiate a peace agreement. So he's saying nice things. He's holding out the prospect of all sorts of investment and cooperation and all the rest of it. Much of it, he did the same thing with Kim Jong-un, right?
Yeah.
And then until he figured out that Kim Jong-un wasn't interested in all that and walked away from it. But so, we're in the Kim Jong-un phase of the relationship. But we'll see. I think that it's still very possible that Putin will not reach an agreement. And what Trump is going to push for is an immediate ceasefire while we negotiate. Putin doesn't want to do that because he wants to take back as much territory as he can while the negotiations go on. If he doesn't agree to a ceasefire, Trump's going to be very unhappy with him. And I think the whole thing could collapse right there, at least temporarily. So, Trump is trying to bring him to the peace table now through negotiation, through welcoming him back into the fold slowly of the international community. But if Putin sort of takes that but doesn't give anything, then it's going to be very short-lived.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. 3D chess.
It is fascinating to watch. It is. When I looked at, I was watching the cabinet meeting.
Yeah.
Right? I don't ever do any of that stuff, but
Yeah, but
I
you
called
never
my
seen
wife
anything
over.
like that. Like that.
Exactly. I called my wife over. I said, "Have you seen anything? Have you ever seen anything like this?" Yeah. Not just the fact that it was such a free-flowing discussion.
Oh, it was amazing.
Trump, but the figures around the table. It's astounding to me as someone who's been in Republican politics for more than 30 years to see the likes of, Doug Burgum, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, and then the ones that are the outliers in that RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was so, I felt as encouraged by what's going on in Washington as I think I've ever felt.
Yeah.
Even at the heyday of Bush era.
Yeah.
So
he's getting things done. And look, he's got something now which he didn't have before, which is he's experiencing, which he should have had in the start of the first term, which every president before him has had, which is a political honeymoon.
Yeah.
You win the presidency and you get a honeymoon, and you get 100 days where you sort of get a chance. People want to work with you, reach across the aisle, get things done, and all the rest of it. He didn't get that the first time around because the left hated him, and they were at the start of the campaign of personal destruction. So they said, he was not legitimate, not my president. Remember that?
Yeah.
The whole "not my president" thing. They burned limousines on his inauguration day and had riots in Washington and broke windows. They started the resistance. Hillary Clinton said he wasn't a legitimate president. He was elected by Vladimir Putin, put him in office, so we had to go through 2 years of the Mueller probe in order to prove that was just a conspiracy theory. Right. We had the 2 impeachments. We had the 91 indictments. We had the whole that. And like I said this on Fox the other day, it's like he's like this Marvel superhero where the bad guys are just throwing every rocket and grenade and firing the whole arsenal at him, and then the smoke clears and he's still standing there.
Right.
It's like and so you have to accept him now. And so now, and not only did he emerge unscathed, he emerged stronger because he got a swing state sweep, a popular vote victory, unified control of government, and so they can't deny his legitimacy anymore.
Right.
And so and he's got popular support. I think his polling is like 52, 53%, depending on the polls. The Harvard Caps poll that came out yesterday, I mean, it's broad support for everything he's doing. He's getting a honeymoon, and so he's got a chance now to get some things done quickly and start delivering for voters. If he can do that, then he'll keep building his political capital. Yeah. So it's a very different situation than he had 8 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, clearly I think the biggest issue, obviously the winning the swing states was important, but I think even more important was the winning of the popular vote. I mean, the first time since Bush in 2004 for a Republican.
But also he has a cabinet for the first time where everyone's on the same page. And everyone is bought into the agenda. Mm-hmm. And before he didn't really have that. He didn't have people around him who were, I think, really fully bought into the Trump presidency, what he wanted to accomplish. He didn't really even think he was going to win last time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it was just, trial by fire. And then to your point, the entire resistance that happened, and he still did a much better job than what came after him.
Though he also having that sort of, what Doris Goodwin called with Lincoln, the team of rivals, is not a bad thing. I worry a little bit that there's too much unanimity in the current cabinet. I think you need to have diverse viewpoints, especially when it comes to foreign policy. Yeah. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But it's also interesting because Trump and what many people who are MAGA think and what Trump thinks are not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of people who are in different positions in the administration and in Capitol Hill who hate Ukraine, who wanted to cut off the aid, who didn't care if Putin won or not, who said this isn't my problem, I don't care about Ukraine, all the rest of it like that. That wasn't Trump.
Right.
Trump does care about Ukraine, and he does want this to end, and he doesn't have the hostility they do. And so in the first administration, you had sort of the internal resistance, which was trying to normalize Trump's policies and slow down his decisions and all the rest of it from a what they would consider a more establishment position.
Yes.
Now you've got some of that happening from a MAGA side, where people think that they are carrying out what they think the MAGA agenda is, and it's not always the same thing as what Donald Trump's agenda is. He does actually plan to he doesn't want to have Ukraine fall into Russian hands, and does care what happens there. And I think that you may see that play out in a bunch of different scenario. So it's people running off and saying, making decisions that they think Trump will like, when it's not really what Trump's position is. Yeah. So you have to watch him very carefully and look at. People try to turn him into a caricature. I think both on the left and the right.
That's correct.
The left takes the most outrageous thing he says and makes that the definition of what he is. And on the right, people sort of tend to do the opposite and sort of, he's much more nuanced than that. And he's not ideological. He's a businessman.
Yeah,
he wants to get things done. And so there's a danger that this administration will overcorrect to the other direction. Which I worry about.
Well, I think your colleague at Fox News, Britt Hume, said it well several years ago. I'm paraphrasing, that people need to stop, worrying about what Trump says and look at what he does.
Yeah, that's very
because
true.
what he says, I mean, as you point out with the Russia-Ukraine issue, a lot of what he's saying is in fact the contours of negotiation. It's not what he's doing. Yeah. And that's a great point. And I totally agree with you that, and I said this during the transition. I said, you watch the true MAGA base is going to be unhappy with Trump on occasion because he's a deal maker. He wants to get stuff done.
Yeah.
So there might be a big immigration deal at some point in the next 4 years. I mean, clearly there's going to be a deal of some sort on Ukraine. These are things that the MAGA base would not necessarily think is what Trump is about. But
there's also a difference between the MAGA base and professional MAGA.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
So the MAGA base on foreign policy is actually really interesting. There was the Reagan Institute did a poll last year, and I did a column on it. They did this poll basically showing Americans were much more pro-Ukraine, much more pro-international engagement, all aboard. And they broke it down to Republican and Democrat in their study. And I was looking at the crosstabs, and they actually defined. They polled: are you MAGA, self-described MAGA, or are you not MAGA Republicans? And so I went through all of their numbers to see how do MAGA Republicans differ from establishment Republicans on foreign policy. On every single issue, MAGA Republicans were less isolationist, more internationalist, more in favor of defending Taiwan, more in favor of helping Ukraine. You go across the gamut, more pro-NATO than the establishment Republicans were. And so his base is actually much more in tune with him. There are the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world and the Matt Gaetzes of the world who are what I would consider professional MAGA,
right? Who
are not necessarily are out of touch with step with Trump, but they're also out of touch with MAGA, with the true MAGA base,
right?
And so it's Trump knows his people better than some of the others do. There a lot of them are less talented Trump wannabes. Right, who really don't have his connection with those people and understand where they are. I remember, if you look back at his record in his first term, he bombed Syria twice for using chemical weapons on its people.
Yep.
He killed Qasem Soleimani.
Yep.
And told the Iranians that if you retaliate, I'm going to kill the Ayatollah. Right, and I'm going to bomb 52 sites in Iran. This is a guy. I mean, if you just look at all the actions he took, he's not an isolationist. Yeah. Right. These and Tulsi Gabbard, who I'm not thrilled with as director of national intelligence, she actually opposed the Soleimani killing.
Yeah.
And she opposed some of these things that he did. A lot of those people who are supposedly MAGA opposed Trump's policies, and those were not decisions that the establishment forced on him. Those are things that he did. Yeah. And he's proud of them. He killed more Russian troops than anyone since other than Zelensky. There was that firefight in Syria where he gave the order to go and kill the Wagner forces that were approaching the U.S. troops. Yeah. He killed hundreds of Wagner fighters until Putin invaded. No one had killed more Wagner fighters than Donald Trump. So this is not an isolationist. Yeah. And I told him this once, and he said, "You and I agree a lot more than some people would think on foreign policy."
Yeah, I've never bought into the entire Trump's this America versus on foreign policy, meaning he's an isolationist.
Yes,
his actions have never shown that.
The last question, because I know your time is short, and we really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
And you may not have insight on this, but I find the struggle between Bannon and Elon, mostly Bannon initiated. Elon tends to, I kind of feel like
he doesn't care.
Elon's like Don Draper. It's like, I feel sorry for you. I don't think about you at all. I don't think Elon thinks about Bannon, but Bannon is laser focused on Elon. Guy can't stop talking about him, and he is very unhappy with him. I mean, is there anything are there any warning signals for Elon, or is Bannon just kind of on an island?
I think Bannon's sort of out of the. He's professional MAGA that's out of this inner circle.
Yeah.
He's not in the White House. Elon is, and he's doing a great job. And look, I think Elon is going to do a great job with Doge. He's going to get to the root of all this spending cuts. He's going to implement certain things, and then I've got the idea for what his next project should be. Oh, yep. We put him in charge of the Iron Dome.
Oh,
so Trump has said he wants to build an Iron Dome over America, which is Ronald Reagan's idea. Remember Brilliant Pebbles? In years, right?
Of course.
Now we can have Genius Sand, right?
Yes.
It's better and smaller. And I can't think of anyone better to be in charge of building a national missile defense.
Absolutely.
That can if he can land a rocket, he can take down a hypersonic Chinese missile.
Yeah.
And so put him in charge of that task. That's what I want to see him do next.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
That's great. That's a great way to end it, too. Marc, thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you or follow you or read you, listen to you? All the things they should
follow
be doing.
me on X at Marc Thiessen, MarcThiessen. Spell it the funny European way. And I'm on the AEI website. You can go to the Washington Post. I have a column there once a week. AEI is the best place to find. They have all my work there.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do for our country and all you do for conservatism.
Absolutely.
You're very kind. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
God bless.
Care.